Art 1. The Incursion. The human warship Valor burst through the dimensional fold at the edge of Imperial territory, its dark hull gleaming against the backdrop of unfamiliar stars. The ship's engines hummed with power as it slowed to a halt, its presence immediately triggering alarms across Imperial monitoring stations. On the bridge, Captain June Park stood with his hands clasped behind his back, studying the tactical display with keen eyes. The bridge crew worked in focused silence, each person aware of the weight of their mission. This was humanity's first venture this deep into alien space, and they carried Earth's hopes with them. "Give me a full scan of the sector," June ordered, his voice calm despite the tension. Lieutenant Hana Kim's fingers moved expertly across her console. "Scanning complete, Captain. I'm detecting an Imperial outpost on the 4th planet of the nearby system and several patrol vessels on standard routes." June nodded and walked to the main view screen, taking in the sight of the alien constellation. The stars here looked different from those above Earth, but the same physics applied. The same rules of war and peace. The same human determination that had carried their species from stone tools to interstellar travel. "How long until they detect us?" he asked. The ship's tactical officer, Dae Song, looked up from his station. "Their sensors are more primitive than our intelligence suggested. We have perhaps 10 minutes before they register our signature." June turned to face his crew. These men and women represented the best of humanity, not just in their skills but in their character. They had trained for years for this mission, knowing they might never return home. "Remember why we're here," he said quietly. "Remember what we saw in the transmissions from the border worlds." Everyone on the bridge tensed slightly. The leaked recordings from Imperial territory had shocked Earth to its core. Worlds stripped of resources, populations enslaved, cultures erased. An empire built on suffering that had gone unchallenged for too long. "Captain, incoming transmission from Earth Command," called out Jin Lee from communications. "They're wishing us luck." A ghost of a smile crossed June's face. "Tell them we won't need luck. We have something better." The Valor wasn't the largest vessel humanity had built, nor was it crewed by thousands. What made it special was hidden beneath its hull. Technology developed in secret, combining human ingenuity with principles learned from the handful of alien species that had managed to escape Imperial control. "Imperial vessels changing course," Dae announced suddenly. 5 ships, Corvette class, they've detected us." June took his seat in the captain's chair. Shields at full, weapons on standby only. The bridge crew exchanged glances. They had discussed this moment countless times during the journey, first contact with the Imperial forces, humanity's introduction to the galaxy's dominant power. "They're scanning us," reported Hana. "Their beams can't penetrate our outer hull." This was the first test of the Valor's advanced defenses, a layered system that absorbed and redirected energy rather than merely blocking it. The technology had been theoretical until 6 months ago. On the main screen, the Imperial vessels appeared, sleek predatory craft with prominent weapon ports along their sides. They arranged themselves in a standard containment pattern around the Valor. "They're broadcasting on multiple frequencies," Jin reported. "I'm running it through translation." A moment later, a harsh voice filled the bridge. "Unidentified vessel, you have entered Imperial space. Power down all systems immediately and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in your destruction." June allowed himself a small smile. "Send no response." The Imperial commander repeated the message, his tone growing more threatening with each repetition. The Valor remained silent, its systems humming quietly, its crew watching and waiting. "They're powering weapons," Dae warned. "Looks like warning. Shots only." June nodded. "Let them fire. Everyone hold position." The first Imperial shots lanced out, brilliant beams of energy that struck the Valor's shields. Instead of the expected explosion or shield flare, the energy simply disappeared, absorbed completely by the human vessel's defenses. Confusion was evident in the next Imperial transmission. "Alien vessel, power down immediately. This is your final warning." June leaned forward in his chair. "Now, Lieutenant Hana, show them who they're dealing with." Hana's fingers flew across her console, activating a targeted pulse that disabled the weapon systems on the lead Imperial ship without damaging any other systems. The alien vessel suddenly went dark, its weapons ports closing as emergency systems kicked in. "Second phase," ordered June. "Broadcast on all Imperial frequencies." Jin opened the channel, and June spoke clearly. "Imperial vessels, this is Captain June Park of the Earthship, Valor. We have disabled your lead ship as a demonstration. We could have destroyed you, but that is not our way. We come with a message for your Emperor." The Imperial ships maintained their positions, clearly unsure how to respond to this unprecedented situation. "We know what you've done to the border worlds," June continued. "We know about the suffering you've caused, and we are here to tell you that it ends now." As he spoke, the Valor's advanced communication systems were already penetrating Imperial networks, sending the first ripples of what would become a wave. One human ship had crossed the border, and though they didn't know it yet, the Empire was about to tremble. Part 2. First contact. The 5 Imperial patrol ships hovered in formation around the human vessel, Valor, their sleek hulls reflecting the distant starlight. On board the lead Imperial ship, Commander Rowe stared at the view screen with growing frustration. His first officer stood nervously at his side, waiting for orders. "This is impossible," Commander Rowe muttered, hitting his console with a closed fist. "How did they neutralize our weapons so easily? And how are they blocking our scans?" "Unknown, sir," replied his first officer. "Our sensors can't penetrate their hull. We've never encountered this technology before." Rowe narrowed his eyes. In 15 years of service to the Empire, he had never faced a situation like this. The strange vessel had appeared without warning and somehow absorbed their warning shots completely. Then, with surgical precision, it had disabled his flagship's weapon systems without causing any other damage. "Send a message to Imperial Command," Rowe ordered. "Tell them we need reinforcements, and continue trying to scan that ship." Back aboard the Valor, Captain June Park watched the Imperial vessels with calm interest. His crew maintained their positions, each person keenly aware that they were making history. This was humanity's first direct encounter with the Empire that had terrorized this sector of space for centuries. "They're requesting reinforcements," reported Lieutenant Hana. Kim from her station. "Their communications aren't as secure as they believe." June nodded. "How long until their backup arrives?" "Based on the nearest Imperial outpost, approximately 3 hours," replied Tactical Officer Day. "Good. That gives us time." June turned to Communications Officer Jin. "Prepare to broadcast again, but this time include visual." Jin's fingers flew across his console. "Ready when you are, Captain." June straightened his uniform and faced the camera. "Imperial vessels, this is Captain Park of the Earthship Valor. We come from a planet far beyond your charted space. We are not here to start a war, but we will defend ourselves if attacked. We request direct communication with your commanding officer." The message went out, translated into the Imperial Standard Language. The response came quickly. "Human vessel." Commander Rowe's face appeared on the main screen, his expression a mixture of anger and curiosity. His skin had a faint purple tinge and bony ridges framed his eyes, the first alien life most of the Valor's crew had ever seen. "I am Commander Rowe of the Imperial Border Fleet. Your presence here is illegal. You will power down and prepare to be boarded immediately." June smiled slightly. "I'm afraid that won't be possible, Commander. We came here to talk, not to surrender. Perhaps you'd like to hear what we have to say before your reinforcements arrive." The alien commander's eyes widened slightly, surprised that the humans knew about his call for backup. "We have nothing to discuss with species who violate Imperial borders," Rowe replied, but his tone had shifted slightly. "I think you'll find we have much to discuss," June countered. "For instance, the treatment of the Narration people on Proxima 4, or the mining slavery on the moons of Helios." This time, Rowe couldn't hide his shock. These were classified Imperial operations. How could these newcomers know about them? As the commander spoke, Science Officer Sue quietly approached June's chair. "Captain, their ships are scanning us continuously. They're trying to find a weakness." June nodded almost imperceptibly. Let them look, he whispered. That's part of the plan. Turning back to the screen, he addressed Ro again. Commander, to show our good faith, we're sending you some information about us. Consider it a cultural exchange. Jin pressed a button, and a carefully prepared data packet was transmitted to the Imperial vessels. It contained basic information about Earth and humanity, enough to seem open, but nothing that could be used against them. Hidden within the transmission was a sophisticated program that would gather intelligence from the Imperial computers. Commander. Ro scoffed. Your tricks won't work on us, human. Imperial systems are impenetrable. We're not trying any tricks, June replied smoothly, just extending a hand in friendship. As they spoke, 3 more Imperial ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel nearby, smaller vessels but heavily armed. Your reinforcements arrive early, June noted calmly. Ro smiled for the first time. These are merely scouts. The full battle group will arrive soon. Your single ship, no matter how advanced, cannot stand against the might of the Empire. Instead of showing concern, June leaned forward in his chair. Tell me, Commander, in all your years of service, how many species have you encountered who weren't afraid of you? The question seemed to catch Ro off guard. Before he could respond, Tactical Officer Day called out, Captain, they're powering weapons on all vessels. Defensive pattern Delta, June ordered without taking his eyes off the screen. Target weapons, systems only. The Valor moved with surprising speed for its size, shifting position as the Imperial ships opened fire. This time, the human vessel didn't simply absorb the attack, it responded. Precise energy pulses shot from the Valor, hitting the weapon systems of 2 Imperial ships simultaneously, disabling them without causing catastrophic damage. Second wave, on my mark, June commanded. Another volley fired from the Valor, neutralizing the weapons on the remaining ships. Within moments, 8 Imperial vessels floated helplessly, their main offensive capabilities offline. Commander Ro's face on the view screen had lost its confidence. What are you? We're humans, June answered simply. And we believe in giving chances. You've just received your first one. As he spoke, Lieutenant Hana whispered, Captain, Imperial communications are lighting up across the sector. Word of our encounter is spreading. June nodded with satisfaction. This was exactly what they had planned. The news would travel faster than any official Imperial censors could control it. The news that a single human ship had neutralized an Imperial squadron without destroying a single vessel. Commander Ro, June said, your reinforcements will arrive soon. When they do, tell them this. We came to deliver a message, not to conquer. But we will not be conquered either. The era of Imperial dominance through fear is ending. The transmission cut off, leaving the bridge of the Valor in momentary silence. Every crew member felt the weight of what they had just done. They had announced humanity's presence to the galaxy's most powerful empire not with submission, but with a demonstration of strength and restraint. And now, June said quietly, we wait for the real response. Part 3. The diplomatic gambit word of the human ship's arrival spread through Imperial space like wildfire. Despite the Empire's attempts to control information, the news traveled from ship to ship, planet to planet. A single alien vessel had disabled 8 Imperial warships without destroying any of them. A display of both power and mercy that contradicted everything citizens had been told about species beyond Imperial borders. Aboard the Valor, Captain. June Park studied the tactical display showing the positions of the incoming Imperial reinforcements. The main battle group would arrive within the hour, 30 ships including 3 capital-class dreadnoughts. Are we ready for the next phase? June asked, looking around at his crew. Science Officer Sue nodded. The information drones are prepared, Captain. Once deployed, they'll bypass Imperial communication protocols and broadcast directly to civilian channels. And our, guests? June asked. They're nervous but ready, Communications Officer Jin replied. They understand what's at stake. June took a deep breath. The plan they were about to execute had been years in the making. Earth's secret outreach to various species suffering under Imperial rule had finally borne fruit. Representatives from 5 subjugated worlds had agreed to meet aboard the Valor, smuggled through Imperial blockades at great risk. Their testimony would form the heart of humanity's message to the Empire. Lieutenant Hana, status of Imperial. Communications? June asked. Hana's fingers moved across her console. They're in chaos, Captain. The Border Fleet Commander has been relieved of duty. The Imperial High Command is taking direct control of the situation. They're ordering civilians to avoid all broadcasts related to our arrival. Perfect, June smiled. They're drawing more attention to us than we could have hoped for. The bridge door slid open, and a tall, thin figure entered. Kree was a Nyron, his blue-tinged skin marked with the ritual scars that denoted his status as a tribal elder. His people had been among the first to fall to Imperial expansion decades ago. Is it time? Kree asked, his voice carrying the musical quality characteristic of his species. June nodded. It's time. Are the others ready? They are waiting in the broadcast chamber, Kree replied. Though I must tell you, many are still afraid. The Empire's reach is long and their memories are longer. That's why we're here, June said, placing a reassuring hand on Kree's shoulder. To make sure they can't hurt any of you again, June turned to his crew. I'll be in the broadcast chamber. Lieutenant Hana, you have the bridge. The moment the Imperial reinforcements arrive, deploy the information drones. Hana nodded firmly. Understood, Captain. The broadcast chamber was one of the largest rooms on the Valor, specially designed for this mission. 5 aliens sat in a semicircle, representatives of worlds that had suffered under Imperial rule for generations. Besides Kree of the Narrans, there was Lux, a stocky female from the mining world of Helios, her skin permanently stained with metallic dust. Valen, a scholar from the once great libraries of Zenthi Prime. Oro, whose species communicated partially through color changes in their skin. And Talia, a child no more than 12 years old, the last survivor of her village after an Imperial pacification campaign. Are you all ready? June asked gently. The 5 aliens looked at each other, then nodded one by one. We've lived in fear for too long, Lux said, her gravelly voice determined. It's time someone knew our stories. Jin set up the broadcast equipment, ensuring that every word would be captured clearly. Remember, speak naturally, he advised. This isn't a formal presentation, just tell your truth. The drones will deploy simultaneously with our broadcast, June explained. They'll ensure your stories reach every corner of Imperial space before the censors can stop them. The broadcast began simply, with June introducing himself and explaining humanity's recent arrival in Imperial space. Then, one by one, the representatives spoke. Kree described how his people had been forced from their ancestral lands, their sacred sites destroyed to make way for Imperial mining operations. Lux showed the scars on her arms from years in the helium mines, working without safety equipment or medical care. Valen spoke of the systematic destruction of his world's knowledge. Books burned, databases purged, teachers executed, all to erase a history that contradicted Imperial propaganda. Oro's skin flickered between deep red and mournful blue as he recounted how his people's unique communication had been outlawed, forcing them to speak only in Imperial standard. And finally, little Talia simply told what she had seen when Imperial troops came to her village, her young voice steady, despite the horror of her words. As they spoke, Lieutenant Hana's voice came through June's communicator. Imperial Battle Group has arrived, Captain. Deploying information drones now. Across Imperial space, regular broadcasts suddenly cut out, replaced by the faces and voices of the 5 representatives. On thousands of worlds, millions of Imperial citizens heard unfiltered truth for the first time. Stories that contradicted everything their government had told them about the benevolence of Imperial rule. Aboard the lead Imperial dreadnought, Admiral Sung slammed his fist against his command console. Cut off those transmissions immediately, he roared. We're trying, sir, his communications officer replied frantically. But these aren't standard broadcasts. They're using our own emergency channels, overriding local controls. Then destroy that ship, Sung ordered. All vessels target the human vessel and fire. But as the Imperial ships moved into attack formation, the Veiler transmitted one final message, not to the civilians, but to the Imperial fleet itself. June's face appeared on every Imperial view screen. Admiral Sung, I know you've ordered your fleet to destroy us. Before you do, you should know two things. First, everything your crews just heard is true, and you know it's true. Second, we came here alone not because we had to, but because we chose to. The rest of humanity waits beyond your borders, watching what happens next. He paused, letting his words sink in. We offer you a choice that no one has offered the Empire before. Change, or be changed. Your move, Admiral. As the broadcast ended, the Veiler's shields hummed to full power. The human crew stood at their stations, tense but resolute. On the bridge, Lieutenant Hana reported, Imperial weapons locking on, Captain. June returned to his chair, sitting down calmly. And so we see if they're capable of learning, he said quietly. The Imperial dreadnoughts loomed larger on the view screen, their massive weapons ports glowing with energy. But across Imperial space, something unexpected was happening. On dozens of worlds, people were leaving their homes, gathering in streets and plazas, their voices rising in questions and anger. The diplomatic gambit had been played. Now they would see if the Empire could change, or if it would have to be changed. Part 4. The Imperial Response Admiral Sung stood rigid on the command deck of the Imperial flagship Eternal Dominion, his face illuminated by the tactical displays, showing the lone human vessel. 30 Imperial warships surrounded the Valor, weapons charged and targeting systems locked. The Admiral's thin lips pressed into a hard line as he considered his options. Status report, he demanded. His second-in-command, Commander Yuna, approached with a data pad. The alien vessel remains at full defensive posture, Admiral. Our scans still cannot penetrate their shielding technology. And... She hesitated. Speak freely, Commander, Sung snapped. The broadcasts continue to spread, sir. Our communication blackout protocols have failed. We're receiving reports of public gatherings on 17 worlds in this sector alone. Sung's fist clenched at his side. In his 40 years of service to the Empire, he had never faced such a situation. One ship, one single alien ship had thrown the entire sector into chaos. The Emperor demands action, he said, more to himself than to his officers. We cannot allow this infection to spread further. He turned to his weapons officer. Target their propulsion systems. I want that ship disabled, not destroyed. The Emperor will want to question the crew and examine their technology. Yes, Admiral, the weapons officer replied. Targeting solution acquired, on your command. Sung raised his hand, ready to give the order, when Commander Yuna interrupted. Sir, incoming transmission from the human vessel. The Admiral hesitated, then lowered his hand. On screen. Captain June Park's face appeared on the command deck's main view screen. Unlike the formal broadcast from before, this appeared to be a direct communication from the Veiler's bridge. Admiral Sung, June said calmly. I see you've brought quite a reception committee. Sung's eyes narrowed. You have violated Imperial space, interfered with Imperial communications, and spread seditious lies to our citizens. Your actions constitute an act of war. Interesting perspective, June replied. From where I stand, we've simply shared the truth that your empire has worked so hard to hide. But I'm not contacting you to debate politics. Then why are you contacting me, Sung demanded, to give you one last chance to avoid unnecessary bloodshed? June's expression remained calm, almost sympathetic. Your weapons won't penetrate our shields any more effectively than your scanners have. But unlike your previous encounter with us, if you fire upon this ship, we will be forced to respond in kind. Sung laughed, a short, harsh sound. You have courage, human. One ship against 30? Even with your advanced technology, the math doesn't favor you. Numbers can be deceiving, Admiral, June said. Tactical Officer Day, if you would. The view screen split, showing a new image alongside June's face. It displayed a sector map with dozens of small, fast-moving objects approaching the Imperial fleet from multiple vectors. "What is this?" Sung demanded. "When we arrived in your space," June explained, "we didn't come entirely alone. These are autonomous defense platforms, small, nearly undetectable, and very effective. They've been shadowing your fleet's movement since you arrived." On the Eternal Dominion's bridge, alarms began to sound. "Sir," called out the sensor officer. "Multiple small objects detected. They were masked by the radiation field from the nearby nebula." Sung's face drained of color. "Impossible. Our scanners would have detected them." "Just as your scanners detected our ship before we chose to reveal ourselves?" June asked pointedly. "Admiral, we didn't come here to start a war. We came here to end one. The war your empire has been waging against helpless worlds for generations." Before Sung could respond, the Valor made its move. The human ship suddenly accelerated, its engines flaring brilliantly as it executed a maneuver that should have been impossible for a vessel of its size. It shot straight toward the Eternal Dominion, passing so close that officers on the Imperial bridge ducked instinctively. "All ships open fire," Sung roared. The Imperial fleet responded immediately, energy weapons and missile systems launching a devastating barrage at the human vessel. But the Valor moved with impossible precision, executing a series of micro-jumps that left Imperial targeting systems struggling to lock on. "They're using some kind of short-range jump drive," Commander Yuna reported, her voice tight with concern. "Our targeting computers can't compensate." The Valor reappeared directly above the Eternal Dominion, close enough that those on the Imperial bridge could see details of the human ship's hull through the viewports. "What are they doing?" Sung whispered, a note of fear entering his voice for the first time. His answer came in the form of a brilliant pulse of energy that washed over the Imperial flagship. Immediately, the lights on the command deck flickered and died, plunging the bridge into darkness before emergency systems activated. "Status report," Sung demanded. "Weapon systems offline," reported the tactical officer, his voice shaking. "Propulsion offline, communications offline, life support and emergency power only." Similar reports came in from across the fleet. One by one, Imperial ships went dark, their weapons and engines disabled by precisely targeted electromagnetic pulses from the Valor and its network of defense platforms. Within minutes, the pride of the Imperial fleet hung helpless in space. 30 warships reduced to floating hulks unable to fight or flee. On the Valor's bridge, Captain June looked at the tactical display with satisfaction. "Status of Imperial fleet?" he asked. "All ships neutralized, Captain," reported Lieutenant Hana. "Minimal casualties. Only minor injuries reported from power fluctuations." "And our systems?" "All systems nominal. The shield modifications worked perfectly. Their return fire didn't even register on our sensors." June nodded. "Open a channel to Admiral Sung." The Admiral's face appeared on screen again, now lit only by the dull, red glow of emergency lighting. His composure had cracked, replaced by a mixture of shock and fury. "What have you done?" he demanded. "Exactly what I said we would do," June replied calmly. "We've prevented unnecessary bloodshed. Your ships are disabled, not destroyed. Your crews are unharmed. You have emergency power and life support, which will give you plenty of time to consider your situation." "This is an act of war," Sung sputtered. "No, Admiral." June corrected him. "This is an act of mercy. We could have destroyed your fleet. Instead, we've given you a choice." June leaned forward slightly. "The broadcasts have already spread throughout Imperial space. Citizens are questioning. Subject worlds are rising. Up. The Empire as you know it is already changing. You can fight that change and be swept away by it, or you can help guide it toward something better." For the first time, the Admiral seemed at a loss for words. "We'll be in touch," June said, quietly. "In the meantime, I suggest you use this opportunity to reflect on what kind of legacy you want to leave." The transmission ended, leaving Admiral Sung staring at a blank screen, surrounded by the most powerful Imperial fleet ever assembled, now floating helplessly in the void, completely at the mercy of a single human ship. Part 5. The Empire Transformed. The Grand Imperial Hall stretched nearly half a kilometer from end to end, its ceiling lost in shadows high above. Massive columns of polished black stone lined the central walkway, each carved with the history of Imperial conquests. For 3 centuries, this room had seen the subjugation of countless species, as their representatives came to surrender or face extinction. Today, something unprecedented was happening. Captain June Park walked slowly down the center of the hall, his footsteps echoing in the cavernous space. He wore his formal Earth uniform, navy blue with silver trim, simple compared to the elaborate costumes of the Imperial Court. Behind him walked Lieutenant Hana and Science Officer Su, their expressions carefully neutral despite the historical significance of the moment. At the far end of the hall, Emperor Sung sat upon the eternal throne, his face a mask of controlled emotion. The Emperor was older than June had expected, with deep lines etched into his purple-tinged skin. His eyes, however, remained sharp and calculating. The Imperial Council flanked the throne, 12 high-ranking officials representing the core worlds of the Empire. Their expressions ranged from open hostility to guarded curiosity. June stopped at the designated spot, exactly 20 paces from the throne, the distance traditionally reserved for equals, not supplicants. This small detail had been fiercely negotiated over the past week. Captain Park of Earth, announced the Imperial Herald, representing the human species and its allies. June bowed slightly, a gesture of respect, not submission. Emperor Sung, I thank you for this audience. The Emperor studied him for a long moment before speaking. 1 month ago, you entered our space uninvited. You disabled our ships, broadcast unauthorized messages to our citizens, and demanded changes to our governance. His voice was surprisingly soft, almost gentle, but carried throughout the hall. Why should I not have you executed where you stand? Several counselors nodded in agreement, but June remained calm. Because you're intelligent enough to recognize when the winds of change are blowing, Your Majesty, and because deep down, you know the Empire has lost its way. A murmur ran through the assembled Imperial officials at this boldness. Careful, human, warned one counselor, a hawk-faced woman with elaborate gold markings on her forehead. You stand in the heart of Imperial power. Your single ship is far away. Distance means little in the face of truth, June replied, and the truth has already spread throughout your empire. The Emperor raised a hand, silencing further comments. You claim to speak truth, yet you've caused chaos. 17 worlds are in open rebellion. Trade routes have been disrupted. Imperial citizens question authority for the first time in generations. Change is rarely comfortable, June acknowledged, but it was inevitable. The Empire has grown too large, too rigid, too focused on control rather than prosperity. And humans know better, is that it? The Emperor's tone was skeptical but not dismissive. We know the cost of oppression, June said quietly. Our own history is filled with empires that rose and fell. The successful ones adapted. The ones that clung to power at all costs collapsed. He took a step forward, a breach of protocol that caused Imperial guards to tense. Your Majesty, before I came here, I spoke with representatives from 27 worlds under Imperial rule. Not one of them described the Empire as just or beneficial. They spoke of resource extraction, cultural suppression, and military occupation. The price of order, stated another counselor, a military man with decorations covering his chest. Without Imperial rule, these worlds would descend into chaos. Perhaps, June conceded, or perhaps they would find their own path forward. The question is whether the Empire exists to serve its people, or whether the people exist to serve the Empire. The Emperor leaned forward slightly. You speak of ideals, Captain, but your actions have been those of a warrior. Your ship disabled our fleet with technology we cannot counter. Is this how Earth builds peace? Through superior firepower? June, smiled for the first time since entering the hall. We disabled your ships without destroying them. We broadcast truth without calling for violence. We could have launched a full invasion. Earth has the capability and the allies to do so. Instead, we sent one ship with a message. And what message is that? The Emperor asked. That the future belongs to those who cooperate, not those who dominate. June gestured to Lieutenant Hana, who stepped forward with a small device. With your permission, I'd like to show you something. After a moment's hesitation, the Emperor nodded. Hana activated the device, projecting a holographic display in the center of the hall. It showed a three-dimensional map of the galaxy, with thousands of points of light representing inhabited worlds. The Empire, June explained, controls this region. A section of the map illuminated in purple showing Imperial territory. Impressive, by any standard. But the galaxy is vast. Other sections of the map lit up in different colors: blue, green, yellow, red. These are other civilizations, alliances, and independent worlds. Some are older than your empire. Some are younger. All have chosen different paths. He pointed to a small blue section. This is Earth and its allies. We're new to the galactic community, but we're learning quickly. We've formed agreements based on mutual respect and benefit, not conquest. And you believe this makes you stronger? Asked the military counselor skeptically. I believe it makes us more resilient, June replied. An empire held together by fear falls apart when that fear is removed. An alliance built on mutual benefit grows stronger with each challenge. The Emperor was silent for a long moment, studying the map. You said Earth has the capability to launch a full invasion. Why didn't you? Because we've read enough history to know that true change comes from within, not from outside conquest, June said. And because we believe the Empire can transform itself given the chance. He nodded to Science Officer Sue, who stepped forward with a document case. This is the Treaty of New Beginnings, June explained, opening the case to reveal a simple document. Not a surrender, not a list of demands, but a framework for transformation. It calls for increased autonomy for Imperial worlds, representation in Imperial governance, and basic rights for all sentient beings within Imperial space. And if we refuse? The Emperor's voice was quiet but firm. Then Earth and its allies will support those within the Empire who seek change, June replied honestly. The transformation will happen either way. The question is how much suffering will accompany it. The chamber fell silent. The Emperor and his counselors exchanged glances, having silent conversations through subtle expressions and gestures. Finally, the Emperor stood, a move so unexpected that even his guards seemed surprised. He stepped down from the eternal throne and walked toward June, stopping just a few paces away. One human ship crossed our border, he said quietly, almost to himself. One ship changed everything. Not the ship, June corrected gently. The idea it carried. The simple truth that power doesn't have to corrupt, that strength doesn't have to oppress. The Emperor studied June's face. You truly believe this, don't you? I do, June replied. And so do billions of others across your empire. They just needed to be reminded. After a long moment, the Emperor nodded. I will consider your treaty, Captain Park. Not because of your ship's weapons or your threats of alliance, but because perhaps, just perhaps, there is wisdom in what you say. He turned to his assembled counselors. The Empire has stood for 3 centuries. It has grown, conquered, and ruled. Perhaps now it is time for it to evolve. As June left the Grand Imperial Hall that day, he felt the weight of history on his shoulders. The treaty wasn't signed yet. The transformation wasn't guaranteed, but a door had been opened that could never be closed again. Back aboard the Valor, preparing to return to Earth, Lieutenant Hana approached him on the observation deck. Do you think it will work, Captain? She asked, gazing out at the Imperial capital planet below them. Will they really change? June watched the planet's lights glittering against the darkness of space. Change has already begun, Hana. The question now is whether they'll shape it, or be shaped by it. He smiled. But I have hope. Sometimes all it takes is one voice speaking truth to power, one ship crossing a border, one moment of courage to transform an empire. The Valor's engines hummed to life, preparing for the journey home. They had come as representatives of humanity, carrying a message of both strength and compassion. And in doing so, they had changed the course of galactic history, not through overwhelming force, but through the power of a simple idea, that even the mightiest empire can be transformed by the courage to face the truth.